A complete and proper vehicle inspection is a 7-part procedure. The entire process should take no more than 15 minutes to finish. Step 1 is called the vehicle overview. As you walk toward your bus, look it over. Check its general condition. Look for leaks underneath, damage of any kind, and if it appears to be leaning to one side. Look at the unit number, note license plates, and see if there are hazards around the bus. People, vehicles, overhangs, anything that could be a problem when you are ready to move out. Be sure you review the last daily vehicle condition report. Note what problems there may have been and what corrective action was taken. Make a mental note to pay particular attention to these items during your own inspection. Step 2, the engine compartment check. When you are sure the brakes are firmly set or the wheels chocked, it's appropriate to check the engine compartment. Open the rear doors or open the hood and check all fluids, hoses, belts, and general conditions. This will include engine oil level, radiator coolant and hose conditions, power steering fluid level and hoses, windshield washer fluid if under the hood, and the battery. The battery may be in any of several locations. Check its fluid level, connections, and tie-downs. With these checks complete and the results satisfactory, secure the engine compartment and step inside the bus. Step 3, engine startup, driver area, and interior inspection. Start the engine and immediately check your gauges. Oil pressure should come up quickly after engine startup. Ammeter should be in the normal range. Coolant and possibly oil temperature should begin a gradual rise, or the warning light should go out. Warning lights and buzzers should go out except for the low air warnings on air-braked buses. These warnings, lights and buzzers, should stay on until the air pressure has built up to somewhere between 60 and 80 pounds, depending on the bus type. Check each of the following controls for operation, setting, sticking, looseness, or damage. Horn or horns. Operate by tapping. Steering wheel. Turn it to check free play. Be sure it is tight. Wipers. Operate each at least one cycle. Check your washers. Watch how the wipers clean as they operate so you can check both wiper blade condition and wiper arm tension. Clutch. Depress fully. It should be tight but smooth. Accelerator. Push, check its operation, but don't over-rev the engine. Brake pedal. Press. Make sure it feels firm. Parking brake. Make sure it's in place and operate if it's safe to do so. Transmission controls. Make sure all parts are in place and ready to go. Check the mirrors for adjustment. Check the mirrors and the windshield for cracks, dirt, or obstructions. Engage all light switches and check for proper operation. Be sure to adjust your driver's seat and check your seat belt. Check safety equipment for a charged and securely mounted fire extinguisher and 3 red reflective triangles. These may be located under the bus, not inside. If required, check your spare electrical fuses. Now walk through the bus. Check each row of seats for both condition and mounting. Be sure that the bus will be both safe and clean for your passengers. Check all interior fixtures. Check and see that emergency exit signs are in place and that emergency exit warning signals operate properly. Check all exit doors and hatches for operation and tightness. Confirm that the wheelchair lift is in good working condition. Cycle it through a complete operation. As you operate it, confirm that it is clean and there are no loose or broken parts. Check all tie-down straps and belts to make sure they are in good condition, not torn or frayed. Step 4. Front-end light check. As you prepare to do your exterior checks, it is important that you include checking your headlights in both low and high beam operation and your 4-way flashers. Be sure your parking brake is set. Shut down the engine, turn on your low beam headlights and 4-way flashers. For safety, take your key with you, if there is one, and get out of the bus. Check the headlights and four-way flashers. Since it is possible that your headlights will operate properly in one phase, such as low beam, but will not operate properly in the high beam phase, get back inside the bus, push the dimmer switch to activate the high beams, then re-exit and check high beam operation. Be sure to check the operation of the rear four-way flashers. Step 5. The exterior walk-around. The next phase of your inspection is the complete exterior check. Before starting, turn off your headlights and four-ways. Turn on all parking, clearance, and markers. The exterior inspection is completed in one circle of the vehicle. Begin at the right front and check the right front wheel. Wheel, tire, rust-stained or missing lugs, valve stem and caps, hub oil level, then suspension, brake lines, and other parts you can see. Walk down the side of the bus and open and check the condition of any compartments and for proper door operation. Check glass and windows for cracks and breakage. Check reflectors and lights. Clean these as you go. At the rear tires, again check wheels, tires, lugs, suspension, and any air lines. Now move to the rear of the bus. Check lights and reflectors. Lights facing to the rear are red, with the possible exception of amber or yellow turn signals. Check your license plates. Then move to the left side. Recheck along the left side as you move forward. Then check the front of the bus. If your bus has a spare tire, check it. Make sure it is secure, inflated, and the proper size. Again, note lights, and go over your windshield for damage, your wipers for tension, and blades for damage, stiff rubber, and securement. Lights and reflectors facing forward are amber in color. Check your signs on the front and make sure they are correct. Make sure all mirrors are secure. Special assistance equipment needs checking as well. When you re-enter the bus, engage the engine again. Confirm that the kneeling action of your bus is operating properly. This completes the exterior walk-around check. Step 6. Signal light check. You should use a helper to verify that your right and left turn signals, brake lights, and backup lights are functioning properly. Have your helper confirm that both right and left turn signals work. Then operate your brake lights and backup lights by engaging brakes. And while the brakes are firmly holding the vehicle, shift into reverse. Have your helper verify that these lights are operating properly. Remember to check the front right and left turn signals. To check turn signals yourself, engage your right turn signal, get out and check all right turn signal lights, front and rear. Repeat this for left turn signals. Step 7. Brake system check. You must do some brake system checks before you depart. These checks vary by the type of brake system you have on the bus. We are going to discuss air brake systems only. You have built up operational air pressure. Shut the engine off, then turn on the electrical system. Pump your brake to reduce air pressure. At 60 psi, the low air warning devices, lights and buzzers, should come on. Restart the engine to rebuild air pressure. In 45 seconds, pressure should rise from 85 to 100 psi. At about 125 psi, listen for the compressor cutout. Make the compressor re-engage by stepping on the brake. Now shut the engine down again and do some additional checks. Watch for system leakage. In 1 minute, you should not lose more than 2 psi. Fully apply the brake. A 3 psi pressure drop is the maximum. Now check the parking brake system. If you are not on level ground, you should chock a wheel. Release all brakes. Pump the brake pedal. The parking brake knob should engage somewhere between 20 and 40 psi. Restart the engine. With the parking brake on, put the bus in gear and gently pull against the brake. The bus should not move. Wait for normal air pressure, release the parking brake, and move slowly forward. 5 miles per hour will do. And firmly apply the brakes. There should be no pull, delay, or unusual feel to this stopping action. You have now completed a bus inspection that will help assure you of a mechanically sound vehicle. There are 2 more inspection points to discuss. First, recheck during your trip. Check instruments, gauges, mirrors, and tires. This is the mark of a professional driver. Second, make a post-trip inspection, the same inspection procedure at the end of the day. Do this according to safety regulations and your company procedures.
And as you guys well know that we all have ELDs. Well, most of us, some of us still do paper logs, but you have to log into that ELD before you start your pre-trip. And what duty status is it? That's right, on duty, not driving. So you got to make sure you do that. And a thorough pre-trip inspection should be at least 10 minutes. I know when I do mine are about 15 to 20 minutes, taking my time, make sure I cover everything. Number 2, and this is very important, and we really can't let our guard down, that was not on the video, was a security sweep. We don't think about it as much as we used to, but opening up all the bay doors and looking inside, make sure there's no foreign objects that aren't supposed to be there that may be hazardous. So do a security sweep through the bus, and do not let your guard down. And number 3 that I want to touch on, and it's not really, well, it should be caught during a pre-trip inspection, but it's probably maybe the number 1 violation in the safety measurement system, and that is emergency exits are not labeled. All right, so all the emergency exits in a motor coach need to be labeled. Now, you put stickers on or whatever, kids will scrape those off, so you still got to check them every so often when you're doing your pre-trip. Make sure those stickers are still there.
Once your coach is centered in your traveling lane and your speed is set, establish a safe following distance by using the 6-second rule. When the vehicle ahead of you reaches a certain object in the road, such as a sign, a shadow across the road, or an overpass, begin counting 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. Your coach should not reach that same fixed object or shadow across the road before you have counted 6 seconds. 6 seconds of space between your coach and any vehicle ahead of you is the minimum safety margin. At 55 miles per hour, it takes nearly 300 feet to bring your coach to a complete stop. That's a football field in length. And air brakes can add as much as 32 feet more distance to stop the coach. A 6-second following distance at 55 miles per hour gives you over 330 feet to stop under ideal road conditions. When traveling at higher legal speeds or in adverse weather or poor road conditions, increase your following distance to 8 or more seconds. Anything less than a 6-second following distance is tailgating. Tailgating is dangerous and should always be avoided because it leaves you no room to react safely. And while traffic conditions don't always make it easy to maintain a 6-second following distance, the best rule to follow is to set a pace just below the speed of those passing you. This way, you can maintain a 6-second following distance most of the time, and if another vehicle cuts in front of you, you'll gradually regain a safe following distance without having to brake. As a professional driver, multi-coach moves need to be treated as separate trips, so you're not following your company's coach directly ahead of you too closely, leaving you little time to react to sudden changes. Treat each coach as a separate charter. You know your destination and your route. Do not worry about following the other coaches traveling to the same destination.
All right, that was a quick little video, and I just want to hit on a couple points. As a safety director and working for Lancer and in loss control, this is a big pet peeve of mine, your following distance. And if you listen carefully to the video, I know it was a little hard to hear, but the commentator stated that a professional driver like you guys should find a speed slightly slower than the other vehicles around you. And that is 100% accurate. Okay. If the speed limit is say the speed limit 65 miles an hour. You should set, if you're running 65 miles an hour, you're probably the slowest vehicle out on the highway. And that's what you want. Now, you don't want to be too slow to, to cause a hazard, but just 2 to 3 miles per hour slower will help with your spacing. People are going to cut in front of you, but because you're going slower, your space comes back within a few seconds. It is a fantastic way to manage your spacing. Okay. And number 2, with going slower than the traffic around you, you're going to find what I call and what I teach is this bubble of space. You got space in front of you. There's nobody on your sides. There's nobody behind you. You are on a highway all by yourself. And that's what you want to find, because those cars and those vehicles running faster, they run in packs. Okay. I used to call them pack of wolves. Here they come from behind me. There they go. And again, I found my bubble of space, and that's how you can effectively manage your following distance. So lastly, we're going to watch an animation on turning techniques.
Turning may sound like a simple driving procedure, but when you're making those turns from behind the wheel of a large commercial motor vehicle, it can be one of the most difficult procedures. This video will provide some useful and practical safety tips to help you avoid accidents while turning. There are 5 basic steps to making a safe turn. Step 1 is signaling. It's important to broadcast your movements to the other vehicles around you. This is especially important in large commercial vehicles where right rear visibility may be severely limited. Signal well in advance of your turn to give others sufficient time to react accordingly, but not so early as to cause confusion. In most states, that's a minimum distance of 100 feet. Step 2 is looking. Scan the intersection as you approach, and look where you intend to move your vehicle to help plan your turn. Be mindful and patient whenever it comes to oncoming traffic, and be sure to take note of parked vehicles, poles, and other stationary objects that can affect your ability to turn. Also be cognizant of off-tracking, and that the rear wheels will take a shorter path around the turn. It's especially important to be on the lookout for pedestrians who may step into the street after seeing the front wheels go by without paying attention to the rear. Step 3 is positioning. Choose your lane correctly and enter it early enough that you don't create a hazard as you approach the turning area. On a left turn with 2 left turn lanes, select the rightmost lane to minimize the left side blind spot and give ample space for your vehicle's tail swing.
Okay, so we have a double turn lane to the left, and it doesn't matter if it's a double turn lane to the right. Okay, as professional motor coach drivers, you guys know that you got to always be in the furthest outside lane, because if you're making turns from the inside lane, you're going to have vehicles on your outside, and sometimes you don't have enough room to make that turn from the inside. So a lot of problems happen from inside turn lane. So always be in the outside turn lane if you have a double or even triple turn lane.
On a right-hand turn, position your vehicle in the lane nearest to the right-hand curb. Step 4 is speed control. Maintain a reasonably slow enough speed to make the safest turn possible, and be prepared to come to a complete stop if necessary. Step 5 is execution, the actual movement of the turn. Here's where things get a little tricky. Keep in mind that even if you don't make any mistakes, you may have to compensate for the mistakes of other drivers. When making a left turn, yield to oncoming traffic in the opposite direction, and cyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles turning right into the same road that you are entering. Also, don't move until traffic in front of you has cleared the intersection. Bring the front of the vehicle to the center of the intersection and keep your vehicle's wheels straight until you begin the actual turn, always being mindful of your vehicle's tail end swing. Laws regarding which lanes you can turn left into when there is only one left turn lane or no separate left turn lane vary from state to state. If more than one left turning lane exists, turn into the lane which corresponds to the lane from which you are turning, being careful not to drift into the other turn lane. Also, beware of wide and long vehicles in adjacent turn lanes. When making a right turn, it's important to avoid button hook turns, or turns in which the vehicle moves wide to the left before executing the turn. Though this gives you additional space to turn, it blocks another lane of traffic, greatly diminishes your right rear visibility, and can confuse other drivers into thinking you're turning left, possibly resulting in an accident. Instead, use a straddle turn, in which you position your vehicle no more than 4 feet from the curb or parked cars to your right, and maintain that distance throughout your turn. This should compensate for tail swing, and prevent you from crossing the center line without losing visibility.
Now, everybody, this is a perfect scenario. As you can see in the video, there's no cars, there's no pedestrians, there's nothing. And we know that out in the cities and, you know, where it's very hard to make turns, we don't get this perfect turn hardly ever. All right, so I want to talk about when to start turning the motor coach. If you look at the curb on the right, the black line, if you extended that curb out into the intersection, when the back of your seat hits that line, that's when you actually start turning a motor coach. And the reason is, if you think about where your wheels are, I know where my passenger side front wheel is. It's right behind the first step. Okay, and the driver's side front wheel is, the front of it is right at my backrest of my chair. So it's the same thing like a car. I mean, you don't turn your wheels before you get to the curb. So it's just a little different because we're sitting in front of the steer tires. So as that bus hits that imaginary line from that curb, that's when you start turning. Now, your eyes have got to be, and your head have got to be on a swivel. They got to be in your right side mirror. They got to be looking for pedestrians. If you're making a turn on a red or a green light, you got to be looking for bicyclists going inside of you, pedestrians on the curb, of course, cars. And even if you had a car parked on the curb and you had to go around that car, instead of using the curb, now you're going to use the outside of that parked car, extend an imaginary line out into the middle of the intersection. And when that line hits the back of your chair, that's when you start turning, okay? It's the same thing for a left turn. If we were going to make a left turn out of this situation, you see the dotted line to the left, okay, that separates the lanes. If you extended that dotted line out into the middle of the intersection, when that hits the your backrest of your chair, that's when you start to make the turn, okay? So it's very important. Now, you know, we got tight roads that we're trying to make right turns and left turns on. And you know, sometimes you got to wait for traffic to clear because you're not going to fit from lane to lane. That just doesn't happen a whole lot. You got to go into oncoming traffic sometimes, you know. Take your time when you're making these turns. You should never be braking through a turn. Everything is on the accelerator, nice and slow. Turning the wheel should be a push and pull technique. You know why you use the push and pull technique? Is because you can only do it so fast. You know, so it's a slower turn, giving you time to make a safe decision while making these turns.
Speaking of right turns, keep in mind that right on red is restricted in some areas. When it's permitted, you must first come to a complete stop to check for traffic and pedestrians before turning. Last but certainly not least, do not attempt to turn if you cannot do so safely using the available space. Instead, select an alternate route. Let's review the 5 basic steps to making a safe turn. Step 1, signaling. Step 2, looking. Step 3, positioning. Step 4, speed control. Step 5, executing the turn. Reviewing these 5 steps on a regular basis can help drivers avoid accidents. especially when they are routinely making turns in heavy traffic areas, such as major cities.
I want to hit one more point that I think is really, really important about driving in cities and making turns, making tight turns, is planning your trip. Not just getting in the motor coach, putting in the address and the GPS and letting the GPS guide you on your trip. You have so much technology at your fingertips. I mean, you got Google Maps. You can look at the satellite view. You can look at the road view, and you can look at your destinations. How I'm going to get in and out of this parking lot. You can look at all your turns that you're going to make in an unfamiliar city or town, and you can see these things. Am I going to be turning on a one-way street? Am I going to be turning on a multi-lane street or two-lane street? But you have that in your repertoire of weapons of, preparing your trip. It's so important to prepare your trip. And, if you ever get in a situation, and I know you guys have, and I've been in this situation where you couldn't make the turn. It was just too tight, find an alternate route, go around the block, set it up differently coming in, but do not force it. Don't be that aggressive driver, because when that happens, bad things happen. So take your time, prepare for your trip, and your turning all your turns, you'll have no problems at all.